What if the biggest immigration crackdown in Florida is not the one making headlines, but the one building quietly behind the scenes? In 2026, Florida is pushing some of the toughest immigration rules in the country, and the real shock is not just the laws themselves. It is who gets caught first, how fast a simple police stop can grow into a life-changing case, and why many families may not see it coming until it is too late. Across the state, new enforcement tools, tighter jail cooperation, and stronger pressure on local agencies are creating what many call a hidden system. On the surface, it may look like public safety, but underneath it can mean faster arrests, deeper record checks, and quicker links to federal immigration officers. For many people, one small mistake could open a door that is very hard to close. So who is at the top of the list? Recent arrivals? People with old deportation orders? Those already sitting in county jail? The answer may surprise you, and once you see how these rules connect, you will understand why this story is much bigger than anyone thinks. Number 1. Illegal entry into Florida. This is where the story gets serious fast. Florida created a law that tries to make it a state crime for certain undocumented adults to enter Florida after crossing into the United States without federal inspection. In simple words, the state wanted to punish not just immigration status, but the act of coming into Florida itself under certain conditions. Supporters say it is about border security. Critics say it goes far beyond that and pulls Florida directly into federal immigration power. And here is the part that shocks many people. The law included a mandatory jail sentence, which means some people could face automatic time behind bars before their immigration case even fully plays out. But there is a major twist that changes everything. Even though Florida passed this law, federal courts blocked it, which means the state cannot enforce it right now while the legal fight continues. That matters because many viewers may hear loud headlines and think mass arrests under this law are already happening everywhere. The truth is more complicated. The law sent a very clear message, but the court stepped in and said Florida may have crossed a line by trying to create its own immigration crime in an area usually controlled by the federal government. So the fear around this law is real, but so is the legal battle surrounding it. Still, this law reveals who lawmakers seemed most focused on first: adults accused of entering the state after crossing the border unlawfully. It also shows the bigger pattern behind Florida's crackdown. Even when one law is blocked, the pressure does not disappear. It shifts into jail cooperation, police checks, and faster contact with immigration authorities. That is why this issue feels bigger than one law. It feels like part of a wider system that many people may not notice until they are already inside it. Number 2. Illegal re-entry into Florida. This law goes even further. It focuses on people who were already deported, removed, or denied entry before and then later came back, tried to come back, or were found again in Florida. In simple words, Florida wanted to make this a state-level crime too. That made the situation far more serious because it was not just about being undocumented. It was about having a past immigration case and being accused of returning again. For many families, this is the part that feels most frightening, because it suggests that old immigration records could suddenly become part of a new criminal problem inside the state. But just like the first law, there is a major catch. This law is also blocked by the courts right now. That means Florida cannot fully enforce it while the legal fight is still going on. Even so, the message behind it is powerful. It shows exactly where the state wanted to apply pressure first. The focus was not random. It pointed straight at people with a prior removal history, which means the law was designed to hit those who may already have a record inside the immigration system. That is why this law created so much fear and so much debate. The bigger story is this: even when a law is blocked, the pressure does not disappear. It stays alive through police cooperation, jail checks, and fast communication with immigration authorities. So when we ask who is targeted first, one clear answer is people with old deportation or removal records. They may not always be the loudest headline, but they are often the easiest to identify inside the system. And that is what makes this law so chilling. It turns the past into a new threat in the present. Number 3. ICE notification after arrest. This part may sound technical, but it can change everything very fast. Under Florida's immigration crackdown, if someone is arrested under these immigration-related rules, law enforcement can be required to notify ICE and share personal details like fingerprints, photos, and other identifying information. That means a simple arrest may no longer stay a simple arrest. In a very short time, it can become an immigration case too. For many people, that is the hidden danger. They may think they are only dealing with local police, but behind the scenes, another system may already be opening up. This is why many families fear the process more than the headline. Once information moves quickly from local officers to federal immigration authorities, the situation can become much harder to stop. A person may still be trying to understand the local charge, but at the same time, their name, record, and immigration history may already be under review. That creates a powerful feeling of pressure and uncertainty. It is not always the law itself that shocks people the most. Sometimes it is the speed of the connection between one arrest and a much bigger federal problem. And when we ask who gets targeted first, this system points again to people who are already easy to track. That includes those with past immigration records, people already known in databases, and those who end up in custody where their information can be checked right away. This is what gives the crackdown its hidden system feel. It is not always loud. It does not always begin with a dramatic raid. Sometimes it starts with one arrest, one record check, and one fast message sent to ICE. Number 4. Immigration detainers in local jails. This is where the system becomes even more serious. An immigration detainer is a request from federal immigration authorities asking a local jail to hold someone for extra time so ICE can take custody. In simple words, a person may finish dealing with a local arrest, but instead of walking out, they may be kept there because immigration officers are on the way. That is why this part of the crackdown feels so powerful. It does not always begin on the street. Sometimes it begins quietly inside a county jail, where a person may think the worst is over, but for immigration purposes, the real danger may just be starting. What makes this so important in Florida is that local agencies are pushed to cooperate more closely with federal immigration officials. That means county jails can become one of the easiest places for the system to identify, hold, and transfer people. And this is why many experts say the first targets are often not random people on the street. They are people who are already in custody, already processed, and already inside a system where names, fingerprints, and records can be checked very quickly. Once that process begins, everything can move fast, and families may suddenly find themselves facing a much bigger immigration crisis than they expected. So when people ask who gets targeted first, this section gives one of the clearest answers in the whole story. It is often the person already sitting in a local jail cell, even for a small or unrelated case. That is what gives this system its hidden power. It does not always need a dramatic raid or a public headline. Sometimes all it needs is one arrest, one database check, and one detainer request. And once that happens, the path from a local jail to federal immigration custody can become frighteningly short. Number 5. State and local agencies must use best efforts. This is where the crackdown starts to feel much bigger than one police stop or one jail hold. Florida pushed state and local law enforcement agencies to use their best efforts to support federal immigration enforcement. That phrase may sound harmless at first, but it carries a lot of weight. In simple words, it means the system is being told not to stay neutral. It is being pushed to help more, share more, and cooperate more. For many people, that creates a chilling feeling because immigration enforcement is no longer just a federal issue in the distance. It starts to feel closer, wider, and more active across the state. The reason this matters so much is because pressure does not only come from one dramatic law. It also comes from quiet rules that increase cooperation behind the scenes. When local officers, supervisors, and agencies are expected to do more, the net becomes wider. A traffic stop, a booking process, or even a routine check can start carrying more risk than before. That is why many families worry about the hidden system behind the headlines. It is not always one big moment. Sometimes it is a chain of small actions that lead someone deeper into immigration trouble without warning. And once again, this helps answer the biggest question in the video. Who gets targeted first? Usually, it is the people who are easiest for the system to reach. That means those already in custody, those with prior immigration records, and those whose information can be quickly shared across agencies. This rule strengthens the idea that the crackdown is not just about one law. It is about building a network where local and federal power move together. And that makes the system feel stronger, faster, and harder to escape. If this story opened your eyes, don't just scroll away. Drop one word in the comments, fair or fear, and tell me why. And before you go, watch our previous video next. It connects directly to this one and reveals even more you need to know. We put a lot of heart, time, and research into every video. So please support us by hitting subscribe. It's just one click, but it means everything to this channel. Number 6. State Board of Immigration Enforcement. This is the part that makes the crackdown feel more organized and more permanent. Florida did not just pass tough immigration rules and walk away. It also created a State Board of Immigration Enforcement, which means there is now a formal structure designed to guide and coordinate how immigration enforcement works across the state. In simple words, this is not just about one police department or one county jail acting alone. It is about building a system with leadership, direction, and a bigger plan. And that is what gives many people the feeling that this crackdown is not temporary. It looks more like a machine being built to last. What makes this even more important is the message behind it. When a state creates a board like this, it shows that immigration enforcement is becoming a deeper part of government action, not just a side issue. It can shape how agencies cooperate, how information moves, and how pressure is applied in different parts of Florida. For viewers, this may sound less dramatic than arrests or jail holds, but in many ways it is even more serious. A board creates structure. Structure creates consistency, and consistency can make enforcement feel broader, faster, and harder to avoid. So when we ask who gets targeted first, this law points again to the people who are easiest for a coordinated system to identify. That includes those already known to law enforcement, those with prior immigration records, and those who enter county jails where data can be shared quickly. This is why the story keeps getting bigger. It is no longer just about one law or one arrest. It is about a full enforcement network taking shape. And once a network is built, it can reach farther than most people expect. Number 7. Local police get more funding to join immigration enforcement. This is where the crackdown starts to grow faster. Florida created a local law enforcement immigration grant program to help local agencies cooperate and coordinate more closely with federal immigration officers. The law says the program can reimburse eligible expenses and even allow bonus payments tied to participation, which means immigration enforcement is not only becoming a legal issue but also a funded system with more resources behind it. That is what makes this part so powerful. It suggests the state is not just asking local agencies to help. It is helping build the money and structure to make that help happen more often. For many viewers, this may sound less dramatic than an arrest or a jail hold, but it may be just as important. When more funding enters the picture, more training, more coordination, and more activity can follow. The law even lays out that grants can be awarded on a first-come, first-served basis, which adds to the sense that the state wants agencies to move quickly and take part. That creates the feeling of a wider system growing behind the scenes, one that becomes more active not through one loud headline but through money, incentives, and stronger partnerships. And once again, this helps answer the question, who gets targeted first? Usually, it is the people who are easiest for a better funded system to find and process. That includes those already in custody, those with prior immigration records, and those whose information can move quickly between local and federal agencies. This is why the story keeps getting more serious. The crackdown is not only about tough words in a law. It is also about building the engine that helps enforcement reach farther across Florida. Number 8. County jails can become the main handoff point. This is where the system starts to feel even more intense. Florida pushed county detention systems to work more closely with federal immigration authorities, which means local jails can become one of the main handoff points in the entire process. In simple words, a person may be arrested for one issue, taken to a local jail, and then suddenly find that the case is no longer only local. Once someone is inside that jail system, their identity, record, and immigration history can be checked much more easily. That is why this part of the crackdown feels so powerful. It turns an ordinary jail stay into a possible gateway to something much bigger. What makes this so alarming is that many people may never expect the danger to grow at that stage. They may think the biggest risk is the arrest itself, but the real pressure can begin after booking, when names are entered, records are reviewed, and agencies start communicating behind the scenes. This is the hidden system most people do not see. It does not always begin with a dramatic raid or a loud public operation. Sometimes it begins quietly in a county facility, where one hold, one database match, or one request can change the entire future of a case. And when we ask again who gets targeted first, this section gives one of the clearest answers yet. It is often the people who are already sitting in local custody, already identified, and already easy for the system to reach. That is what makes county jails so important in this story. They are not just places where local cases are handled. They can become the bridge between a local arrest and a federal immigration nightmare. Number 9. The transport program that expands the reach. This part sounds simple on the surface, but it carries a much deeper meaning. Florida created a program that allows the state to help transport unauthorized immigrants when federal immigration authorities request it. In plain words, this means the system is not only about arrests or jail holds anymore. It is also about moving people from one place to another as part of a larger enforcement chain. That is what makes this so important. A crackdown becomes much stronger when it can not only identify and detain people, but also help transfer them through the system more smoothly. For many families, that creates a new level of fear because it suggests the process does not stop at detention. Keeps moving forward. What makes this even more striking is the message behind it. This kind of program shows that enforcement is becoming more organized, more connected, and more prepared. Even if the public only hears about arrests, there is a whole structure behind the scenes that helps carry out the next steps. That is where the hidden system feeling gets stronger. It is no longer just about one officer or one jail. It becomes a larger network where detention, coordination, and movement all work together. And when those parts connect, the pressure on targeted communities can grow very quickly. So again, who gets targeted first? Usually, it is the people who are already inside the system and easiest to move through it. That includes those already in custody, those flagged by immigration records, and those identified through local and federal cooperation. This is why the transport program matters so much. It may not sound as shocking as a new crime on paper, but it helps turn enforcement into a full process from start to finish. Number 10, pressure through IDs, jobs, and criminal penalties. This is the part many people overlook, but it can affect daily life in a very real way. Florida's immigration crackdown is not only about arrests, jails, or transport. It also creates pressure through driver licenses, job rules, and tougher criminal penalties. In simple words, the system becomes harder to avoid because it can touch the most basic parts of life. Getting identification, keeping steady work, or facing a criminal case can all become more dangerous for people already under immigration pressure. That is what makes this final point so powerful. It shows that the crackdown is not just one door closing. It can feel like several doors closing at the same time. What makes this especially serious is how these rules can create fear even without a major arrest. A person may worry about how to prove identity, how to keep supporting family, or what happens if a small legal problem turns into something much bigger. That is where the hidden system becomes most visible. It is not always a dramatic raid on camera. Sometimes it is the quiet pressure that builds in everyday life until people feel trapped from every side. And for many families, that kind of pressure can be just as frightening as direct enforcement because it affects work, movement, and peace of mind all at once. So when we ask one last time who gets targeted first, the answer becomes even clearer. It is often the people who are easiest to pressure in daily life, easiest to identify in records, and easiest to pull deeper into the system after even a small problem. That is why this final point matters so much. It proves the crackdown is not only about deportation itself. It is about creating a wider system of pressure that can make life harder long before a person ever reaches an immigration courtroom. So what is the real story behind Florida's immigration crackdown in 2026? It is not just about one law, one arrest, or one headline. It is about a larger system that keeps growing through jail cooperation, record checks, local police support, transport programs, and everyday pressure tied to jobs and identification. That is what makes this issue feel so powerful and so frightening for many families. On the surface, some of these rules may look like separate action, but when you connect them together, they begin to look like a single machine designed to find, flag, hold, and move certain people through the system faster than ever before. And that is why this story matters so much. It is not only about what the law says on paper. It is about how the whole system can work in real life. The biggest question in this video was simple but deeply important. Who gets targeted first? And the answer is now much clearer. It is often the people who are easiest for the system to identify and reach first. That includes people already sitting in local jails, people with old deportation or removal records, and people whose names can quickly appear during police checks or booking procedures. In many cases, the first targets are not always the people making the biggest headline. They are the people already visible inside the system. That is what gives this crackdown its hidden system feeling. It can begin quietly, but once it starts, it can move very fast. And this is why everyone should pay attention. Whether you support these laws or question them, one thing is clear. Florida is building a tougher and more connected enforcement network. For some, that may sound like security. For others, it feels like fear. But either way, the impact is real, the pressure is growing, and the people caught first may not always see it coming until it is already too late.